Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. We wanted to create an opportunity for our media to be able to field questions. I'll just kind of start with the events of today. Earlier, we sent out a press release after we had some issues with some increased sedimentation and clogging up our filters overnight, or in the wee hours of this morning. The team responded appropriately, took down the filters, backwashed the filters, and we were up running at full capacity by this morning. So we sent out the press release saying, "Hey, we're up. We've had issues, but we're fully running now." And then subsequent to that, we saw sedimentation again and the reclogging of filters. And so Scott and the team took some of those filters down. We did see drops in production combined with the utilization that happens in the morning. And that dropped water pressures below the 20 PSI threshold for one particular zone of the city. We issued a boil water advisory for that zone. That map can be found on rva.gov and was also included in the press advisory. And so since then, the team has been working hard to maintain production. We have seen an increase in water production up to about 40 to 45 million gallons a day, which is what it's producing right now. The reservoir is slowly gaining height again. And so we're keeping a close eye on both production and the reservoir. We know that the people are experiencing lower pressures. And we expect that if we can continue to keep pressures up through the evening and the night, we should be able to then start the process of water sampling. As you all may remember from January, to lift a boil water advisory, it requires 2 different samples that have to be separated by 16 to 24 hours. We're still shoring up that protocol. And then we'll be read after that. So at some point, when the system repressurizes, we'll take the first sample and then we'll follow that and make sure that we keep the public updated on when that boil water advisory can be lifted. So that's the key that we need to share right now. There's a segment of the city, it's on the map that's on rva.gov that is under a boil water advisory. We are monitoring all other segments as well as other parts of the region, and have not seen any decreases below the threshold. So that's why the boil water advisory is very localized to the map that we've provided, and that it's all hands on deck effort to make sure that water production is being maintained and that we're able to, once the zone is fully repressurized, start the process of lifting the boil water advisory. Okay, let me pause there and we'll go to your questions. Dr. Scott Morris is on as well, and we'll be answering most of the detailed questions here. The first question here is, how will communication about what is happening improve? A number of residents are not on social media and did not get emergency alerts they signed up for. The city alert portal website does not have water notifications. Appreciate that, Maggie. We are putting out regular media advisories, so we'll rely heavily on our website, our 311, and then any efforts that you all can help us as the mass media to get the information out there. That's how we will be communicating. And we'll do that periodically throughout the night as things are coming up back online.
We can discuss.
We also, Maggie, we did send a Richmond Ready alert earlier today, so hopefully people have received that if they're signed up. Next question, Michael Phillips, can you explain how the filters were clogged? Is this a new issue or a regular event? I'll defer to Scott to answer that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can impact filter abilities or operational capacity. In this event, it looks like the raw water quality decreased, which caused us the need to have additional backwashing or draining of those filters. Routinely, filters normally have to be backwashed every so often to maintain their operability. In this instance, it looked like the the sedimentation basin or the water quality that was in the basin had a very poor water quality, and it impacted a majority of the filters simultaneously, and that resulted in us having to take the filters offline against both plant 2 and then also plant 1, and then have to recover the system sequentially and bring the system back up.
Kate asked the question, what is happening with hospitals in the city, and how about restaurants and offices? We alerted hospital partners as soon as we had concerns this morning. There's clearly in that zone, VCU Hospital and their Brook Road footprint are in that, as well as Retreat Hospital. So everybody is under a boiled water advisory, and so they're going to have to boil the water to be able to use it for drinking. But otherwise, hospitals are working on any specific responses they have. I don't know all the details if they're bringing on additional tanks or not. But right now, we still have some degree of pressure maintained there, and that should continue to increase throughout the afternoon and evening. And then how about restaurants and offices, including state offices? Again, we don't have a loss of water supply, right? The water pressure may be lower, but most, like our office, for example, which is in that zone here at City Hall, has seen a little bit of a decrease in pressure, but we did not close City Hall. We're just alerting people about the boiled water advisory and making sure that they don't drink the water. Okay, next question here is from Kiris. Why is the water so murky, sedimenty? Scott, you may have touched on that. I don't know if there's any other anything else you want to provide there.
If they're a reference to the raw water, and we're still looking into it, a lot of times production is impacted just by the raw water source. So it's difficult to make a quick determination on what the impact was from. Mostly, as long as you process the water and they get it treated and then do the backwash sequence for the turbidity and do the finished water quality sampling, that assures that the water quality is safe and reliable to drink.
And the next piece of the question is, what are the concerns about neighborhoods not on the Gter Park tank? And we have tested and monitored pressures at all points of the distribution, and it was only that Gter Park tank that dropped below the 20 psi threshold that triggers a boil water advisory. For everybody else, they can continue to drink the water. We would, obviously, the sooner the reservoir fills up and the entire system is pressurized, the better. And so that's why there was a note about conservation in our initial press advisory here. We hope that people will continue to conserve to some degree as we go through the day, and especially when we get over the bump of utilization that'll happen this evening, the reservoir should fill up. So what's really different about this scenario than January is that in January, our pumps were fried and weren't actually producing water. That's not the case here, right? We're currently making 40 to 45 million gallons a day. So we're seeing consistent water production, and now we need to just refill the reservoirs.
This is, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mira. Let me just finish Karis's last question, and then I'll hand off to you to facilitate. So the other question is, why did we tell the counties before the city residents? And I'll let Scott speak to the protocol, but the alert to the public happens much later than the internal communication that we have with county residents to try to figure out, hey, what can we do to reduce demand on the system so that we don't drop below that 20 psi threshold. But Scott, I'll let you speak to some of the SOPs.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. There's different escalation thresholds, and in that coordination effort and that communication protocol, when we reached out to our regional partners and tried to get them to reduce pull from the system or production needs or demand needs, and that did help. And so Chesterfield was able to reduce their demands on the system, and Henrico was also able to reduce their demands on the system. And so that allowed us to have more time to recover the facility and then make a plan of action to move forward. Ultimately, we decided that we did need to do a boil water and notification to the public, and we did that in a timely fashion. We consulted with BDH to make sure that that was in accordance with what they would perceive as adequate. And in that coordination effort, we decided ultimately to do the press release to the public when we did.
Hey, thanks, Scott. Okay. Here is another question. Would like to have either the mayor or Scott Morris address what the government's plan, what the city of Richmond's plan is to prevent issues like this from happening in the long run. If you could speak about that, it's not unreasonable to expect higher standards from public utilities given the water rate. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, obviously January's events raised lots of concerns and lots of new actions on our part to address staff issues, to create new standards, and then to build up new protocols for communication. And so some of those we saw put into action here, but obviously there's ongoing work that needs to be done. We don't know the acute cause of the increased sedimentation here. And so after we get out of this recovery phase, then our eyes will turn towards, okay, what's the prevention focused work that we need to be doing to ensure that this doesn't happen. Scott, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, the only other item I would add to that is just mentioning as a reference, we are at half capacity for the Bird Park Reservoir. And ultimately, if we get that facility back up to full capacity, that will help in type of these instances going forward. That gives you a little bit more capacity to respond. If your plant does have any kind of issues where you need to take several filters down, it gives you more of a response time. Now, obviously, while that construction is ongoing, we're still limited to half capacity, but in the future years, you'll see a lot more capacity in the storage in the distribution system that can help with this if an event ever occurred in the future.
Jumping in with another question. This is Mira Signer. Going to bundle these together because they're sort of related. Can you remind folks of the specifics of a boil advisory? There's a question here about, can restaurants use their 3 chemical dishwashers that are sufficient for every other day? And then also related to that, can you talk about should restaurants in the fan be concerned about closing, and when is the earliest that the boil advisory would be lifted?
Restaurants can continue to operate under the guidelines provided by BDH to operate under a boil water advisory, right? We don't need to shut restaurants down. The boiled water advisory, I don't know if we can find the link for that, but we should, we'll get BDH to sound off on and make sure that restaurants have clear guidance about how to operate under an advisory. But this in and of itself should not be a reason for restaurants to close.
And Mary, you did speak to the general time frame. So as soon as we get to above 20 psi, we'll take a sample, and then we have to wait 16 hours before we can take another sample, and then we have to wait a period of time for those samples to mature so they can be read and analyzed. And so generally speaking, you're looking at from the time of getting the original sample from when you get back up to 20 psi or greater, roughly about 48 hours after that before you can make a declaration.
Okay, Victoria Lucas, ABC 8. We have seen residents who did not receive Richmond Ready alerts for the boil water advisory. Have you been alerted to any malfunctions to the system? Is there a reason why some folks did not receive them? Should folks expect delays?
Sorry, was that the Richmond Ready alert system?
Yeah, I think it's functioning as but if a resident didn't get it, they need to sign up for Richmond Ready so they can get those notifications. I would just reaffirm that go into the account, make sure you're set up, and then adjust your settings for those notifications. And you should. And in the event you don't, please reach back out to the city, and we'll make sure that the account is adjusted accordingly. But If you're signed up for Richmond Ready, you should be getting those notifications.
Okay, we've got Madison with channel 12. Will all of the rain we are supposed to get overnight make this worse with the sediment and such?
So we had a discussion with this with VDH and then also with our plant staff. I don't believe there'll be an impact from the rain. I think this actually have some level of improvement. So we shouldn't have an impact from this, but we will have to wait and see and give another status update as time progresses.
Thanks. Okay, we've got Samuel Parker. The water treatment plant's oxidation treatment process is offline. I've been told this is not a factor in today's incident. Can you confirm? I understand AOP breaks down and removes pollutants and can be used to prevent clogging.
This was not an impact for this incident.
Let's see. Axios, Sabrina is asking, why is it that this issue didn't affect the counties this time? And why was specifically the Gter Park tank impacted when the filters reclogged? How does that work?
Yeah, so Mayor, I'll speak to this if you're okay with it. We had early coordination with the counties, and so they were able to reduce demands and act quickly and decisively to reduce the demands, so that minimized the impact to the counties. And then that tank in and of itself is a smaller tank, so it has much more of an impact than some of our larger tanks. And so that's why you see that localized issue in that zone only.
Maggie from CBS. Our understanding is the city is using 3 different types of alert systems on a regular basis. Some believe this may be leading to why people are not getting these alerts. Why is the city not using wireless emergency alerts, which is a best practice and free tool to reach everyone? Will the city evaluate moving to one system to help streamline communication?
Happy to look at that, Maggie. I thought we'd switched over to Richmond Ready alerts as our primary mode of communication, but yeah, happy to look at that as we get this resolved.
Thanks all, just scanning. Hang on one second. Okay, we've got a question here. What is the mayor's message to residents and businesses frustrated to see this happen again after they were told for months that the city was working to make sure it didn't happen again?
Totally understand your frustration. I think, yeah, we're continuing to invest in the system to improve our protocols. And I think we've seen some improvement from January's event to now in terms of our rapidity in communicating to regional partners and getting information out to the public. And so we will continue to invest in the system, invest in our systems, invest in our people to make sure that this doesn't happen again. But we are in a rebuilding mode, and I think both as the system needs more investment, and we've brought new leadership in. It's gonna take time for all of those systems to be working properly.
There's a question about whether and how Richmond Public Schools would be impacted.
We had a brief conversation with RPS this morning. They're deciding internally whether to continue running. Again, because the situation is different than January, where there is still water coming into the system and they can flush toilets as needed. That may not be a reason to close, but if they decide that that not having drinkable water is enough of an issue, they may end up closing. So they're working on that today, and we'll get something out to families when they make a decision.
Yeah, I can give a bit of an update there, but we definitely do want to acknowledge that, RPS will need to communicate directly about their final decisions, and those are in the works. But we have identified I believe it's 21 impacted schools in the boil water advisory zone, and we can meet the demand for bottled water for them to meet their requirements for offering lunch and drinkable water during lunch. So we've established that, but of course they're still working through their decision.
All right. Scott, I've got a question about the loss of federal funds, and will those affect the upgrading of the plant?
It is always disheartening to lose federal funding, but the upgrades that we have for the facility have been planned. They have been built into the rate structure. So any upgrades that we have planned, any reduction in federal funding will not impact that. We'll be moving forward with those projects.
Great, thanks. Scott, another question for you, as well as you, Mayor Avula. Can you confirm that the pumps are currently working and the system is regaining PSI?
Yes, so I just came from the facility. I've been on site since roughly before 5 a.m. The reservoir levels are recovering. The tank elevations are recovering. The plant is producing about between 40 and 45 mgd, as the mayor spoke to. And so if we keep on that status and conditions stay stable, there will be a continuous recovery in PSI and tank elevations in the system. And we'll move forward with taking those additional samples as needed to get back into repealing the boil water advisory.
Okay, thanks. Question for Mayor Avula. How confident are you that this will not spread outside of the affected zone?
At this point, I can't say that with confidence. We're monitoring all of the pressures, and because we are heading in the right direction, right? We continue to produce 40 to 45 mgd a day. So that feels good, right? It feels good that we're moving in the right direction, but until we've restored pressure throughout the system, I don't think I could commit to anything. I think that's why we're watching all of these zones so carefully, and are concerned that if a lot of utilization happens and we see the pressure drop, that could impact other zones as well.
Okay, thank you. Another question for Mayor Avula. How concerned should Richmonders be about the reliability of government utilities after this and other issues, plus reduced federal support?
Yeah, I think coming out of this, there's always a spectrum of options. There are certainly many communities across the country that have moved towards the privatization of utilities. We clearly have a model of that with Dominion and Electric. I don't know that is the direction we would head, but we were already, as a result of January's events, we were already in conversation with our regional partners about more shared regional investment and regional oversight. And so we'll continue down on that path.
Okay, thank you. And last question, will the city be distributing any bottled water to residents? Are there sites for bottled water available?
We will alert folks if we do move in that direction. Remember, back in January, many parts of the city were not actually able to get any water, which is why we started water distribution. Now we have a segment of the city that's under a boil water advisory, And so people can use the water, they just need to boil it before they drink it. So we're thinking through, who are some of the more harder to reach communities who might not be able to adhere to a boil water advisory. And so we're mapping out plans, but we'll certainly alert folks if we start water distribution. And Ryan, to answer your question about the city's alert system, we have not investigated anything at this point. So if you guys have specific examples of where the alert system has not been working, it would actually be really helpful for us to know those so that we can do some diagnosis on how effectively the city's alert system is working.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. We will be posting this on our YouTube page just as soon as we can.